What's going on, everyone? There is a ton of rumors and speculations going around about OG Anunoby's time in Toronto potentially coming to an end. Whether it's Toronto just wanting to move off of him or OG Anunoby just burnt out with his role, wants a bigger role, and wants to be traded, which doesn't make a ton of sense because I feel like he was really utilized last year and we saw his numbers go up significantly. We saw him kind of step into a really solid role, but the idea is Scotty Barnes' emergence has Toronto feeling like OG is now expendable, which I could see that being the case. I could see Toronto maybe wanting to trade him for assets to pick up and just kind of grow and develop their team better. Maybe a quality couple vets or something, or maybe another star, something along those lines. But I made a video yesterday diving into potential destinations. I'll link that video down in the description below. I highly recommend you check it out after this video. But with all these speculations, usually, where there's smoke, there's fire to an extent. Now, Toronto could just be trying to fill out and see like what kind of packages could they get for OG. Lots of teams do that. You kind of throw the fishing hook out there and see, what bites. And if it's something you don't want, you just throw it back out. If it's something you take, then yeah, you take it on. The other thing is, if OG Anunoby really is available, you're going to have a ton of teams reaching out to try to get him because, he is perfect in today's NBA. A big body, 3-and-D wing, a guy that can go get his own bucket, a guy that can get you, 15 to 20 a night. He can be, your second or third guy on your team, and it's a great pickup. He's still very young, so it makes a ton of sense for why teams would want him. Toronto, I'm curious to see what they are looking for in a supposed trade package if they were to unload him to a team. And one of the teams that is being rumored to potentially go after him is the Los Angeles Lakers. And the trade for the Lakers would be Kendrick Nunn and THT, along with some draft picks, whether it's 2 firsts or a first and a second, something along those lines. That is the reported trade that is out there in the world. And before you think, like, why would they do this? Why would Toronto do this? This makes no sense for Toronto. It makes all the sense in the world for the Lakers, but no sense for Toronto. They clearly highly value THT. For whatever reason, THT is very young. He's still only 21 years old, so lots of growth, lots of improvement, right? There's lots of room for him to potentially turn into this great player, maybe even a star, something like that, an all-star. I think he is somebody that could develop into that. He's younger than most of the people in this draft. Also, the Toronto Raptors, they have a plethora of wings. They have a plethora of big guys that can, guard the perimeter and stuff. They're very lacking on the point guard position. And I think THT fits the mold of what Toronto does. Those big guys that have long wingspans that can guard multiple positions. THT really fits that mold. And 2 years in a row, Toronto has tried to get THT. So they really highly value him. On top of that, you're getting Kendrick Nunn. So now you have Fred VanVleet, you have Kendrick Nunn, and you have THT, who THT is the real prize. You get a couple draft picks. It does make sense for Toronto. Now, these trade speculations and stuff, always take them with a grain of salt. I don't think that Toronto would make this trade, if I'm being honest. I do think that Toronto could get a lot more for, an OG Anunoby. But how much more? And especially depending on how much they value THT. He's a young guard, can play both guard positions, can guard multiple positions. He has a ridiculous wingspan. He's shown signs of potentially being a quality guy. I just think he's on the Lakers where he doesn't really have much room to develop regularly, especially with Westbrook. He can't be that guy. Like if the Lakers trade Westbrook, then I really think THT can step up into a bigger role, and we may be able to see the THT we're hoping for. His value isn't that high currently, but it may be to a Toronto Raptors. And it does make sense for Toronto if they really do value THT. Let's go get a guard that we have for the future, 21 years old. It fits our model. It fits what we're trying to do here in Toronto. He's a guy that can go get buckets. He's a guy, if he improves his three-point shooting, could be a real solid threat. He's a guy that just, can grow and develop under our umbrella that is the Toronto Raptors. And we have a solid quality core to move going forward with Scotty Barnes, Siakam, all of these guys you have to really launch your team forward. And then obviously Kendrick Nunn That's just like if he is a guy that really can get back to form. We saw him in Miami. He was a 20-point-a-night guy, and especially in the playoffs. He was great in the playoffs in the finals run where they ended up losing to the Lakers. And for whatever reason, the Miami Heat let him go, which makes sense. I mean, he was injured. They were trying to get some vets. They were trying to create space, create room, things like that. But if he can get back to form, this would be a good, solid pickup for the Toronto Raptors. Not just that, but they don't have to rush to have him come back. You know, they can kind of let him ease in, kind of get his feet wet, get back into the swing of things. And if he does return to that 20-point-a-game guy off the bench, then Toronto's in a great spot, right? They got multiple guards, multiple wings. They got, a prototypical NBA team by today's standards. And they're all young, they're all hungry, they're all athletic, they're all, able to guard multiple positions. You have a really solid team, not just for this year, but for years to come. And I think that may be what Toronto is looking at if this trade was ever to be proposed. Now, if you're the Lakers, I mean, you're doing this trade immediately. If I'm the Lakers, I'm pulling the trigger the second that if they even mention this or they even say like, hey, we're thinking about done. Let's do it. Let's sign the papers. Let's make this happen. Because you're getting a perfect complement and everything the Lakers need. You're getting basically your third option, right, with Anthony Davis and LeBron James. You're getting a wing that has big size, that can guard multiple positions. He can, control the ball. He can get his own shot. He can do everything that the Lakers desperately need. I mean, this would be about as great of a pickup for the Lakers as they could get. You still have Westbrook. You still got to figure out what to do with him. But, even if you keep him, all that's going to happen is that this is just going to help with the situation even further, right? Because now you got a big wing, you got a guy that Westbrook can drive and kick to and consistently knock down shots. You got a guy that can roll to the rim, Westbrook can dump off to. If you trade Westbrook, you're probably trading him for other wings. If you do the Indiana trade, right, where you're trading Westbrook for Buddy Hield and Brogdon. Well, that's great. Well, you already got your wing. So now it's not like, well, now we need to go and get a wing. If you can sign one or two more big solid wings this offseason, then you're sitting great. I mean, you're sitting in a great position. I mean, you could have Austin Reeves still could be plugged into the starting position. We saw him play great. Supposedly Austin Reeves, he's ready for more ball handling duties. He's working on a shot this offseason, and he's trying to get bigger and bulk up a bit. If that's the case and he can guard multiple positions, he is what Brogdon is thought to be for LeBron. Or you could do the Hornets trade. If the Hornets trade is still on the table, you go get Hayward and Oubre. Now you have these three wings that we need in today's NBA. You saw it even in the playoff runs. All the teams that were successful in the playoffs all had multiple big wings that could guard multiple positions and knock down shots. That's what we saw. And that's what the Lakers would get with OG. So I think if the Lakers could even sift this, you give up both draft picks, you give up a second, you do whatever you have to. Because not only do you get a great wing in the NBA that can get you, 15 to 20 night in and night out, but he's young. You're getting a young prospect that still has room to grow, that still has room to develop, that hasn't even hit his prime yet. And, if he is that guy and he can continue to develop, I mean, you could have your third star on your team ready to go. You got that wing guy that can help alleviate LeBron and all of those, especially as LeBron gets later in his career, because LeBron's only getting older, right? So I think no matter how you look at this, it is a huge pickup for the Lakers. It just comes down to, is Toronto really willing to do a trade like this? Is Toronto really willing to give up OG for a Kendrick Nunn, a THT, and, a couple draft picks? Yeah, I mean, Toronto likely, they've drafted well. They likely, value draft picks. But outside of that, you're really just trading OG for THT because Kendrick Nunn is a complete mystery, right? Kendrick Nunn, we have no idea what he is, what he will become, if he will get back into being that player that he once was. I mean, he missed an entire season, so there's room for concern there. But you have to include him because you have to make the money match, the salary match. So it really is, when you boil it down, 2 firsts, maybe a second, and THT for OG. And then Kendrick Nunn is kind of the wild card that you're hoping, if we get Kendrick Nunn and he turns out to be the Kendrick Nunn that was on Miami, then we actually have a pretty good trade on our hands. I just think that the Raptors could get better trades for OG than this. I'm not saying that, it'll be that much greater. I mean, what trade is going to be that much better that a team would be willing to give up for OG? I mean, the Portland Trailblazers, which is a team I want to talk about, which I did talk about in those 5 videos, but I kind of want to expand on more. Maybe they can throw in a couple picks. They do have the number 7 pick, so maybe you get higher picks, but this draft isn't a great draft, and beyond this draft not being a great draft, the draft is always, a roulette shoot, right? It's always you're just spinning the wheel and hoping you pick up a quality prospect that can be anything close to what OG is. Now, the problem is that more times than not, it doesn't work out, especially for the mid-tier draft picks, where at least you know what THT is currently, which is a solid player, which is a really good player, which is a guy that can go and get you, 15 to 20 a night. He's okay with not being the first option, stuff like that. I just think that there is value there, and he's still young enough to where you're likely he's gonna grow and develop and be so much better. He's still so young. He's only 21 years old. So I definitely think that there's some value there. But let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. What do you think about an OG Anunoby for THT, Kendrick Nunn, and some draft picks? Do you think that's a fair trade? That's a good trade. Clearly the Raptors value THT. Clearly the Raptors think that THT is a guy that would really fit their team and fit like the mold and what they're trying to build. They went after him 2 years in a row. So clearly there's a heavy interest, because usually, you shoot your shot. Hey, can I get a THT? Let's see. And then, you go, okay, well, nothing. And you just kind of move on. No, they keep throwing offers out there to try to get THT. And if they really want to move off of OG, they do lack a lot of guard play. They have a plethora of wings, especially with Scotty Barnes. It gives you a lot more flexibility. So they might look at THT and go, he's a young guard who can, get you 20 points a game if he can get to being consistent. He's a guy that can distribute. He plays defense. He's got long wingspan. He's everything that Toronto is sort of building towards as far as players go. He can guard multiple positions, things like that. I can see the value of THT from a Toronto standpoint. Kendrick Nunn, again, is just the wild card, right? He's the guy that, if he does return to form, then they got a great pickup. They got a 20-point-a-game guy. They got a point guard that can start but also come off the bench. I just think it's a great position for Toronto. I just go back to, I just see Toronto getting a lot more, especially with the demand of wings in today's NBA. I just think Toronto could really get a better trade package than what the Lakers could offer. But you never know. You never know. We've seen stranger trades. We've seen stranger things in the NBA. And then from the Lakers standpoint, I just think it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, that's about as good of a trade as you could get currently for these pieces, right? I don't see you getting a better trade than OG, a better player than OG. I just don't. He's young. He's everything you need in today's NBA. He makes up so much of the deficit that the Lakers lacked last season. He's a perfect guy to be around AD and LeBron James, and then whatever you do with Westbrook, you do with Westbrook. But inherently, you have LeBron, AD, and now you have OG. I just think that's a great trio, and you can never rule out the Lakers if that is the case. But what do you think? Do you love the trade? Do you hate the trade? All these things I'd love to hear down in the comment section below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports, join this wonderful community, and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one.